Thank you, Suzanne, and welcome everybody in the Sydney office, but also in our other offices around the country. It's now 5:30 p.m. in Sydney and in the eastern seaboard, other than Brisbane. So I declare the 2015 annual general meeting of the Avant Mutual Group Limited open. I note that we have a quorum, as there are more than the 20 required members present, either in person or by proxy. I note that this meeting is also linked by video and telephone to our interstate offices, including Perth, Adelaide, Brisbane, Melbourne, and of course here in Sydney. I welcome you all to the 2015 AGM of the Avant Mutual Group Limited. It's a great honour and a privilege to have been appointed as chair of this fine company almost 18 months ago, and to speak to you again tonight in that capacity. I extend a special welcome to the current voting member directors of the Avant Mutual Board, excuse me, and also the non-member directors of the Avant Mutual Board. And of course our CEO, Mr. Andrew Balderman, here on my right. I was going to extend, yes, there he is. Sorry, Stuart, I didn't see you. I'd like to extend a special welcome to the past chair of Avant Mutual, Professor Stuart Boland, and thank you for being here tonight, Stuart, joining us in the Sydney office. I welcome the other members of the Avant Insurance Board who are here today too. Finally, I'd like to welcome here in Sydney our external auditor, Mr. Scott Ferguson from PricewaterhouseCoopers, our appointed actuary, Mr. Jefferson Gibbs from KPMG, Ms. Deborah Pittman and Mr. Neil Keane of Election Consulting Group, who've assisted us with the conduct of the election of voting member directors. Thank you. And of course our scrutineers for the election of voting member directors, Ernst & Young, represented by David Hodges. We've received a number of apologies. I'm not going to read them out, however they will be recorded in the minutes. I confirm that the standing orders which were approved by members at the 2008 AGM and which set out the procedural rules for this meeting are available for inspection at each of the officers participating in the meeting. So the first order of business is to deal with the minutes from last year's or 2014 AGM, and these are available once again for inspection at each of the officers that are participating in this meeting this evening. Can I ask for a motion that the minutes of the AGM of 2014 be adopted as a true record of the meeting? Dr. Brown, Penny Brown.
Thank you.
And seconder? Dr. Aranga in Melbourne. I declare the motion carried. So the only formal business of this meeting is the receipt and consideration of the financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2015. There will of course be an opportunity for questions and comments in relation to the financial statements and any items of general business appropriate for this forum. The results of the 2015 voting member director election will also be announced. Before we proceed with the formal business of the meeting, I'd like to take this opportunity to outline a few of the achievements of the past year. I'm very pleased to report that 2014-15 has been another successful year for Avant, and we've achieved our goal to not only defend but to protect, advise and support our members while they carry out their important work of providing health services to our communities around Australia. Member numbers have increased across all of the career stages, and we now provide services to over 68,500 healthcare practitioners and students. Our financial statements and balance sheets demonstrate that we continue to perform strongly, operating a sound, sustainable organisation that serves members for the durations of careers that can last for more than 50 years. We closed the year with over $1 billion in net assets, which was a milestone for Avant and an important result in that it's consistent with a very strong organisation. It's a year since we announced our retirement reward plan, where we share our financial success with members who are retiring, leaving practice. And I'm delighted to report that the board declared the first payment of $6.8 million in dividend and ex gratia payments and notionally contributed a further $19.6 million to members' notional balances as of the 30th of June 2015. As I outlined last year, we're investing in preventive activities in accordance, I think, with contemporary practice in healthcare, trying to stop problems before they arise, as well as, of course, treating them if they do arise. And we're coding our claims experience over the past decade with the aim of enabling greater identification of target areas for member education and training activities. In an era where reliable evidence is essential to guide best practice, we are the only medical indemnity provider with the data, expertise and resources to undertake such an ambitious project. We've also increased our investment in research scholarships for doctors in training, supporting funding for research into specific domain areas that arise from our claims experience, again closing that loop. Our sub-company, the Doctors Health Fund, has continued to perform very well and is one of the fastest growing health funds, achieving a growth rate of 11.4% in policies and now provides cover to over 27,700 people. In 2015, we've sought to consider how best to harness the skills and expertise of our thousands of members. So in order to do that, we've been reviewing our various member committee structures. Future committee structures will take advantage of the clinical expertise of our members as well as their knowledge of local issues and factors that influence claims and practice environments in individual states and territories. We're also seeking to advocate in areas specific to our expertise where we can make a positive difference to members' lives. And this year we've appointed Dr. Penny Brown as Senior Medical Officer to head up our advocacy section and also as a member of the Avant Executive. It goes without saying that no environment remains constant, and we acknowledge that the coming years will, as ever, provide both challenges and changes. The current low interest rate environment and the instability in local and global investment markets will present additional challenges in the immediate future. But our prudent approach to capital management with multiple tiers of capital allows us to maintain and provide security to members and confidence to the organisation. Please excuse me, I'll turn that off. The Avant board and management remain committed to providing the highest level of protection, security and confidence for members during careers that, as I've already said, may span half a century. Our commitment to this principle provides us with a lens to evaluate additional opportunities to protect our members, and the appreciation shown by our members for our additional health and travel insurance products clearly indicates that we're seen as a reliable source of advice and service. And so we aim to continue to diversify our range of product offerings, always ensuring that they align with our core goal of member benefit and service. Finally, I'd like to thank my fellow board members, all those members who so generously give their time to our various committees, and to all the management and staff at Avant who've contributed to these impressive results. It indeed is a pleasure, and I'm very proud to be part of such a good and successful organisation. We now come to the formal business of this AGM as set out in the notice of meeting, which has been sent to members. And I propose to allow time for members in attendance to ask questions or make comments appropriate for this forum. I would ask members to identify themselves and then to confine themselves to one question or comment and to a maximum of 5 minutes. Moving on to the financial statements. Item 1 on the agenda is to receive and consider the financial statements and reports for the year ended 30th of June 2015. Our Chief Financial Officer, Scott Pearson, and our External Auditor, Scott Ferguson of PwC, are present here in Sydney to answer any questions in relation to the financial statements. Are there any questions or comments in relation to those statements, directed to myself or to Mr. Pearson or Mr. Ferguson from members in any of the offices? The statements are obviously available for you to see. If not, may I have a motion that the financial statements and reports be received and considered? Dr. Joe Lizio. And a seconder? Dr. Penny Brown. I declare the motion carried. There are no items of general business included in the notice of meeting. However, if any member wishes to raise a question or make a comment appropriate to the forum, this is the opportunity to do so. Again, I ask members to first identify themselves and to confine themselves to one question or comment and a maximum of 5 minutes. I'm going to go around the various the state offices and I'll start with Sydney. Are there any questions or comments from members in Sydney? Sydney? No? Okay, Melbourne, where I gather you've been having some trouble hearing. Do we have any questions? Can you hear us now? No questions from Melbourne? Brisbane?
No questions.
Thank you.
No questions.
From Adelaide.
No, we're happy, thanks, Simon.
Thank you. And Perth. No questions.
No questions.
We've got Melbourne here now. Any particular questions from Melbourne?
The big disadvantage.
Sorry, we can hear somebody speaking, but we can't hear the details of what they're saying.
Have you asked for apology?
We did have apologies recorded. Are there additional apologies that you'd like to have recorded?
Yes. From Jonathan Burden.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from Melbourne?
Not at this stage.
Thank you.
No idea what you said.
We'll move now to the election of the voting member directors, which is the final item on the agenda. And I confirm that the election of the voting member directors of Avant Mutual has been conducted pursuant to the procedure for election adopted by the Avant Mutual Board. This year, Election Consulting Group once again assisted us in the online voting process, and Ernst & Young has acted as scrutineers, and we thank them as ever for their assistance. Voting in the election closed at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, 17th of November 2015. And this year, the election process, nomination and voting, was conducted entirely online for the first time. To remind those present, there are 6 voting member directors currently serving on the board of Avant Mutual. Can we do anything? You can't hear us, is that right? We can hear you. Lots of laughter.
I think it's put on mute.
You have them on mute.
No, if we mute, they can't hear us.
Can you hear us again now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'll keep this up close to my face. Thank you. There are 6 voting member directors currently serving on the board of Avant Mutual Group Limited. Currently, we have 2 from New South Wales, 2 from Queensland, 1 from Victoria and 1 from South Australia. As required by our Constitution, 2 of these voting member directors will retire at the end of the AGM and are eligible for re-election. This year's retiring directors are Mr Timothy Edwards and Dr Douglas Travis, who were appointed during 2015 to fill the casual vacancies arising from the retirement of long-standing directors, Dr Rosemary Ayton and Dr Stephen Clark. And I know we have Dr Clark in the Melbourne office, and I should personally thank you for the service that you've given us. Oh, and Rosie, hello, how are you? I'm sorry I didn't see you off screen. Thank you both. Mr Edwards and Dr Travis each stood for re-election. And again, to remind you that the geographical requirements of the Avant Mutual Constitution provide that at least 1 and not more than 3 voting member directors be resident in each of Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland. This means that the candidate from Victoria must be appointed in this year's election to fulfil the geographic minimum for that state, even if there were 2 candidates from other states who polled a higher number of votes than any Victorian candidate. And each of the voting member directors will be appointed for a 3-year term. At this time, I would ask our scrutineer, Mr David Hodges from Ernst & Young, to confirm that the election and the count have been conducted in accordance with the relevant rules.
Yes, I can confirm that it has been conducted in accordance with the rules.
Thank you, David. Before announcing the results of the election, I'd like to make 2 observations. Firstly, we've had a record number of high-quality candidates, 13 in total, offer themselves for election to the Mutual Board this year. They've each addressed specific criteria in their election platform statements, and these criteria were introduced in the nominations process this year to allow voting members to have all the relevant information available when making their decisions. And I think that's been a very positive move. However, my second observation is that we have had a record low number of members participating in the voting process this year. Even allowing for a move to a fully electronic voting process, very few members have cast a vote. And regardless of the subsequent outcome, this very low rate of eligible voter participation must be of concern to any member-elected board. And I foreshadow that the organisation will review its nominations and election process in the coming year, as well as considering any appropriate constitutional change. I've been provided with a report of the outcomes of the election by Suzanne Barron, our Group Company Secretary. I don't plan to go through each of the 13 candidates and list the number of votes cast. If any of the candidates would like to seek that information, they can contact Suzanne as the Company Secretary. That information is readily available. So instead I'm going to announce the two candidates who had the highest number of votes, and accordingly I declare that the following members have been duly elected as directors of Avant Mutual Group Limited. And they are Dr. Douglas Travis, who had the highest number of votes and is Victorian, so fulfilling that requirement to have a Victorian member elected, and Dr. William Glasson. I congratulate Dr. Travis and Dr. Glasson, and I sincerely thank each of the candidates for their nomination and continuing support of Avant. And once again, I would comment on the very positive quality of the candidates, many of whom I talked to about their interest over the phone, and I would hope that they would continue to support us and be very actively involved in our activities. Those appointments will see Director Mr. Tim Edwards retire from the Avant's board, and I'd like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to Tim for his contribution to Avant. He was appointed during 2015 to fill one of the casual vacancies arising from the retirement of long-standing directors Rosemary Ayton and Stephen Clark, as I've already alluded to. And I know that my fellow directors and I have benefited greatly from his generous sharing of experience and expertise, and we thank him for his contribution over the past few months on the Mutual Board. So thank you. It remains for me now to formally declare this meeting closed, and I invite you to join us for refreshments. Thank you all for your attendance and participation. I'll put this for the Victorian office back on mute. Thanks, Andrew.